Time for our Sunday showdowns. Throughout this hour, we're going to go game by game to highlight some starts, sits, sleepers, and players to beware. Starting with the Atlanta Falcons, visiting the Cowboys in Jerry World. Which of Dallas's three wideouts rank are you starting?
Well, I like all three of them, but I'm really interested to see Michael Gallup in this contest. Last week was a little bit of a disappointment, just 8 fantasy points, but you know, he's had an average of 77 receiving yards per game since 2019. That's 8th amongst receivers. And we saw last week, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, each had 90-plus receiving yards against the Falcons. So I think this is going to be a huge opportunity for him to get back on track.
On the other side, I like Russell Gage as a sleeper this week. We saw him as one of 3 Falcons receivers to have 100 yards in week 1. Atlanta had a nearly 3-to-1 pass-to-run ratio in that first week. Could be similar in week 2 if this turns into a track meet, which is what I expect. Gage played about 68% of the snaps, was targeted on about a quarter of his routes. I do expect this might be the start of a pretty good season, sneakily, for Russell Gage.
Yeah, Russell Gage in full effect last week. Elsewhere, a rematch of Super Bowl 49, the Patriots, Seahawks. Almost everyone from that game is gone. But who's your left shark from this one, MJD?
Well, again, you see it. DK Metcalf. I don't like to be negative because it's Friday, but it just doesn't. It's not a good matchup for me. He's probably going to draw Stephon Gilmore with the top corner in the NFL right now. And I think with the way the Patriots are playing defensively, this is just a sit for me. I know you drafted him pretty high, but I don't think he's going to produce that well this week.
You know what? I'm going to say start Cam Newton this week. Number one, because I wrote an article for NFL.com called Unpopular Opinions, if you want to go check that out. Plus, Cam Newton was pretty good last week against the Miami Dolphins, despite having just 155 passing yards. He was out there running like the Cam of old, a pair of touchdowns, and N'Keal Harry blew a touchdown. It could have been even more. But I think that if you have Cam Newton and you took him as a flyer, perhaps he might be good. Here's the news flash. He's good. Get him into your lineup.
Couple of AFC contenders, the Ravens and the Texans. I'll start with my must start, and that is Marquis Brown. The Texans were in too high looks so much against KC that Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran for 1 billion yards. Expect them to be closer up this time to try to stop Lamar and company. I think Hollywood goes big this weekend.
You know, I'm going to say this. Don't sleep on Jordan Aiken, and I'll tell you why. For some reason, over the last towards the end of last year and obviously week 1, he's been the guy they've kind of looked at in the red zone. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins not around. You see him making plays here. And guess what? Baltimore allowed 14 points to David Njoku in week 1. So I tell you what, open your eyes and wake up. If you have a tight end problem, Jordan Akins may be your guy.
I'm awake. Broncos Steelers, Marcus, James Conner trending in the right direction. In his words, straight from the source, to play through ankle injury. Does that change how you feel?
Not really. I think you still give Benny Snell a start. I mean, I think instead of maybe having him as an RB2, you probably drop him down to a flex. But what we saw from him on Monday, even before we saw the injury to James Conner, Snell was just much more efficient with his opportunities. There was talk that now, even with Conner back, we could see more of a rotation between these two backs. Plus, with Pittsburgh's passing game, I don't think Denver can afford to load up the box and focus on stopping the run. So I think there's still going to be some opportunities for Snell this week.
You know, Marcus, I love when we talk about running backs. Again, I'm being negative this time. I'm going to sit Melvin Gordon. It has nothing to do with Melvin Gordon at all. I think he's on his revenge tour. But we saw what the Pittsburgh Steelers defense did to Saquon Barkley. And, I mean, to me, this is probably the top defense in the league right now. And any running back that goes against them or any receiver, I'm just going to sit against this defense until I'm shown otherwise.
Get back in with the Lions and the Packers at Lambeau. MJD, you think one of the secondary receivers for the Packers can absolutely go off again?
Yeah, MBS, when you watch this game against the Vikings, he was the deep threat. They were getting him down the field. He actually dropped a couple touchdowns as well. I truly believe that with Devontae Adams on the other side getting a ton of attention, I'm going to start Marquez Valdez Scantling. I got it right, I think. Hopefully I got it right this week.
I'm going to say you should sit Adrian Peterson this week. I know nostalgia is a powerful drug, but sometimes you got to stay away from it. His game looked last week, it looked great against the Bears, but 10 of his 17 touches came in the third and fourth quarters after the Lions had a 2-score lead. I don't see the game script being quite as favorable this week against the Packers. I think DeAndre Swift starts to see more snaps, and if the Lions are trailing, which I expect, Swift is more likely to be used in the passing game.
Never take someone else's nostalgia, Marcus. Vikings at Colts. Couple teams hoping to avoid a disappointing 0-2 start, which is why I say the Vikings are going to lean heavily on Dalvin Cook, as they want to do all the time. Mike Zimmer's defense traditionally causes problems for Phillip Rivers. He's 5-0 in the last 5 games against him. I think on the offensive side, they're going to grind it out with Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, you know what, Patrick? For me, this is a little bit above a sleeper. If you're streaming defenses, this Vikings defense is a sneaky good start, and I'm going to tell you why. Phillip Rivers is a turnover machine, period, point blank. He turns the ball over. He did it last year. He did it in week 1. That means he'll do it again. I'm going to play for the upside and say the Vikings may get 2 or 3 picks in this game.
All right, let's keep it going, MJD. Right back to you. Rams at the Eagles. You are the radio voice of the Rams, so give us a beware.
Yeah, beware of Zach Ertz. You know what? Zach Ertz is from my neighborhood. He's from Danville, California, up north. And this is just a thing. I didn't like the way the game script went in this game. It seemed like they were looking at Dallas Goedert more. And then the Rams have been doing a great job. And there's rumor that Jalen Ramsey may be covering him a little bit. So I would just beware of Zach Ertz this week.
Well, sort of along those lines, I think you got to start the Rams defense this week. And I go back to last week when the Eagles gave up 8 sacks against Washington, and Carson Wentz just had pressure in his face all day. So if the Eagles can't slow down this Washington team, I think they're going to have problems with Aaron Donald and his pals up there. Plus, if the Rams offense gets going, especially through the air, which I expect, this defense can sort of focus on just pinning its ears back and coming after the quarterback in the second half.
Then we'll go from the Rams to the Chargers as the Bolts will get their chance to open SoFi Stadium against KC. You absolutely must start Tyreek Hill. He has more receiving yards against the Bolts than against any other team in his career. He also has more rushing attempts as well. If you're thinking about benching Tyreek Hill for some shiny object, don't do it. You took him where you did for a reason.
So I'm going to go and try to talk people down off the ledge about Austin Eckler. I know last week is not what everybody expected, although he had 84 rushing yards on 19 carries. I mean, that's not terrible. The one target last week was a little bit disconcerting, but when you think about it, the Browns running backs only got 3 targets all last night in Thursday's game, so maybe the Bengals can just cover running backs. I know there's some concern with Mike Pouncey out, but I think you trust the volume in this game and think that Austin Eckler's going to be just fine.
We'll keep it in Tampa Bay, gentlemen. Other than Brady, who are you feeling good about, Florio?
I'm going to start Ronald Jones this week. He led the Bucs running backs in snaps, touches, targets, catches, and yards in week 1, and he could not have a better matchup. The Panthers have allowed the most fantasy points per game to running backs since 2019. They've allowed 33 touchdowns to running backs in that span. No other team has allowed 24, and Josh Jacobs finishes the RB1 against his defense last week. I'm not saying Ronald Jones is going to be the RB1, but I think he's going to have a very strong fantasy game.
Me, Mike, I'm starting Robbie Anderson, not just on the strength of that Serve Her video alone, but because of the way the offense operated in week 1. He had 8 targets against the Raiders. The defense, of course, is a lot tougher this time around, but clearly he's a big part of the offense that Joe Brady wants to call. You call him that? I do, Robbie, and I also call you a starter on my fantasy team. Serve Her, not a bear, but you know who likes bears? That will be one Adam Rank.
Yeah, I think I'm going to talk about every Bears possible. At some point, I'm going to have to try to work in Jay Cutler. But again, for a lot of the same reasons, we love streaming Jimmy Graham. We want to play Allen Robinson, maybe even Mitch Trubisky. It's because this Giants defense has a deficit in this secondary. It's a big reason why they brought in James Bradbury during the offseason. But what we saw on Monday night shows us you can start your receivers against this team.
Now, for me, it's a beware on the other side. Evan Ingram, folks, I know this is disappointing because a lot of you thought he was a steal in round 7, and he might still be. But last week, it was a tough defense with great safety play. that was a problem. And looky here. Here we go again with the same situation in Chicago. I think he'll get you wins later this season, but not so much this week. From there, we go to the Niners-Jets. And guys, the Jets look kind of bombed out and depleted.
Yes, they absolutely did. That's the reason I'm saying start the 49ers defense this week. I mean, the Jets offense, 254 total yards. That was pretty abysmal. Now they come into this game with no Le'Veon Bell, no Jamison Crowder. Sam Darnold had pressure in his face a ton. He was sacked 3 times against the Bills. I would expect the Niners, especially after kind of a shaky defensive performance last week against the Cardinals, I expect they're really going to try to get after the quarterback this week.
And to your guys' point, I'm saying sit every Jet in fantasy this week. The Jets have averaged the fewest yards and touchdowns per game since 2019. The 49ers defense has allowed the second fewest yards per game since 2019. And the Jets' top 2 weapons in Bell and Crowder, they're not playing this week. So maybe you're thinking, I could get Chris Herndon in. But the Niners have been so tough against tight ends this last year that I don't want any part of Adam Gase in that Jets offense this week. I'm saying sit all of them.
Let's get to the football team against the Cardinals. Marcus, you've got a surprise here.
Yeah, I'm just saying to beware of Kyler Murray. And I know MJD said he liked him. And look, I understand the rushing ability is what could certainly help out. But I'm just watching this Washington defense after they got so much pressure on Carson Wentz last week. What did help Kyler Murray was that he got the ball out quickly against the 49ers. He's going to have to do that again. But those guys up front for Washington, they are fierce. They're going to be coming after him. So he's not a complete fade for me. I'm just saying just sort of beware of what might happen this week.
Yeah, the football team's D is good. On the other side of the offense, I say sit Terry McLaurin this week. He draws the Buda Baker / Peterson secondary matchup. I think they key off of him as that Washington offense is still kind of trying to figure some things out. He is the one known on that offense. People know that he can produce. I think that hurts him in this game against Arizona. Let's keep it moving here. Resident Bills fan, Michael F. Florio, who are you jumping through a table for in this matchup against the Fins?
I'm not jumping through a table for anyone, but I do think Josh Allen is a must start this week. He accounted for 91% of the Bills' yards in week 1 and was involved on all of their touchdowns. Plus, he's averaged 31.08 fantasy points per game in 4 career games against the Dolphins. That is the most that any player averages against any one team in NFL history. If there is ever going to be a week that you trust Josh Allen, it needs to be against the Miami Dolphins.
Well, I'm saying to sit Jordan Howard, and I might just be talking to myself because I had talked myself into believing he'd be a kind of a solid middle round pick. But he had a 7-8-9 game in week 1. 7 yards on 8 touches on 9 snaps. Did have a touchdown, but that still didn't really salvage his day. Myles Gaskin was the lead RB in Miami with 35 snaps. Now he's got this Buffalo defense that really shut down the Jets run game. So Jordan Howard is a sit, and he might be a guy that you might think about putting on the waiver wire soon.
And where would we go on Jags Titans other than Maurice Jones-Drew?
Yeah, here's a sleeper for you guys. I think Gardner Minshew. If you got some guys with some tough matchups that we've seen this week, and you're looking for a guy that's can be productive, if the Jags want to win, it's going to be on Gardner Minshew. Obviously, 3 touchdowns, 1 incompletion last week. I think he gets even better this week, and him and Jay Gruden will be on the same page. And don't be surprised if he lights it up again. I mean, Gardner Minshew is on fire right now.